What's a rabbi to tell you on the first day of the year? Truth is, leading up to this moment, I have started and reworked this sermon, and then started again and reworked it some more, and then started over another time. Actually, a few more times. Really too many times to count, and that's just in this last week. Because you know the reality. This year has been like no other. October 7th and what followed, it made me question everything. Our story was upended. Because in this year, the story of our Judaism, our faith, our people was built upon that which held it together. It came tumbling down. There's actually a Yiddish proverb that asks, why did God create humanity? And the answer, because God loves a story. But I don't believe this is a story we were supposed to have lived. I can't believe this is what God wanted. Ironic in thinking back to last year's Rosh Hashanah and how we thought there was so much to worry about. Who could have imagined, let alone predicted, what we'd be experiencing, the concerns and the challenges we now feel we're up against? Maybe in celebrating Rosh Hashanah here together, we're reminding ourselves of the depth of our story, not just the difficulties of this past year. We have a remarkable history of strength, of determination, of perseverance. That's what I've always held on to. Today, I wonder if it's possible for us to get back to that awareness when we are feeling so untethered. We're searching for answers in a time when it seems as if the questions are still being formed. 30 years ago, I wrote my thesis on the impact of the Kishinev pogrom of 1903 on the American Jewish community. In all my research, here's one reality I thought to be true that we had learned. The word pogrom describes something of the past, an experience from which we were no longer concerned. It's why most Jews today really don't know about the town of Kishinev or what happened there. What my grandparents lived through, what caused them to flee Russia and Romania. Pogroms evoked images of marauding murderers chasing women and children, of families hiding in closets and being burned alive in their homes, of Jews being attacked for no other reason but that they were Jews. Those realities, the pogroms, are part of a story from the past. And the creation of the state of Israel changed everything. No longer was history played out on us. No longer were we the objects of what was happening in the world. We became the subjects. We were the ones strongly living dreams. We were the ones going to change the arc of hundreds, if not thousands of years of history. And we did. It's for this reason Israel not only chose as its national symbol the menorah, the menorah, but modeled it to look exactly like the one we find today in Rome, chiseled on the Arch of Titus, which was the Romans' depiction of their destroying Jerusalem nearly 2,000 years ago. It was as if they were saying, the Romans stole it, so we're going to bring it back now. If not the actual menorah, then Jewish sovereignty. If not the menorah itself, then at least the end of Jewish defeat. In this new Israel, our story would have a very different ending. With Israel, her strength, pogroms and persecution, chaos, kidnapping, no longer to be our fear, let alone our reality. It felt good to believe that. We did believe that until October 7th. But that day, and really this entire year, has rocked our world. It's left us devastated. We now know on days leading up to it, Israel wasn't paying attention, wasn't listening to the intelligence reports, wasn't protecting its citizens. As a result, our people will never be the same. 1,200 murdered, 251 kidnapped, the pervasive sadness surrounding Israel, still with 101 remaining hostages 363 days later, is overwhelming. And yes, these past 2 weeks, they have brought tremendous success against our enemies and a powerful show of strategic brilliance. We've regained maybe some of that lost confidence, but the existential crisis that woke us up on that fateful day, it still hangs palpably and poignantly in the air, as just demonstrated on Tuesday with 180 ballistic missiles launched at Israel by Iran. If only that were the singular challenge we're dealing with now. How I wish that was the only truth that's shattered for us since Rosh Hashanah last. However, the fact that throughout this year, we've never felt more alone, even and especially in this country, undermines our comfort daily. For how many decades have we believed strongly that we had the understanding, we had the support of those around whom we lived, that democratic and pluralistic institutions, they had our back. And as much as the Jewish people flourished in Israel, so did we here in America. Yes, we may have known that anti-Semitism still existed, appearing in the image of rallying neo-Nazis or marching Klan members, maybe even with the gentleman's agreement still occurring here and there. They were isolated realities. But now what we see and hear daily shocks us to our core. Hearing anti-Semitic rhetoric spewing forth under the guise of anti-Israel protests, seeing Jews being attacked in the streets of cities we comfortably called our homes, even watching university presidents parse words in front of Congress rather than call out anti-Semitism, saying it all depends on the context. Learning last night that even Rabbi Daniel was verbally attacked with blood libel claims and Jew hatred, all while teaching about our faith in a church. You know the list can go on. And it leaves us wondering, do we actually belong here? Many have acknowledged we have never felt so alone. Something is different. How many ministers and priests and imams and non-Jewish community leaders called and texted us after the attack on Pittsburgh's Tree of Life Synagogue some 6 years ago? They came to our congregation. They sat on the bema with us. They spoke powerfully from this pulpit against hate. In contrast, I can count on one hand religious leaders from outside the Jewish community that I've heard from after October 7th. Side note, let me say how much those few calls meant. One from the Bishop of Indiana, Bishop Robert McClorley, formerly the Monsignor of Shrine of the Little Flower. Things change. And from the Archdiocese of Detroit, and from Pastor Bruce Burwell from Light of the World Christian Ministries. It's good to know who stands with us. It was sad feeling abandoned by a world we thought understood our suffering. There's no doubt we have more than a bit of PTSD, a post-traumatic stress disorder. But I learned this summer in Israel about post-traumatic growth. While we may be familiar with PTSD, what many didn't realize is what can happen after it's experienced. Researchers found that some 10 to 20% sadly never recover, but close to 60% experience growth because of the trauma. Positive psychological changes leading individuals, in our case, our people to develop stronger resilience, new awareness and perspectives, to even open up to envision opportunities possible. Possible. Think about it with the lens of our history, our story. Can you imagine living through the destruction of the first temple 2,600 years ago, or the second temple in 70 CE? I am confident that many then believed God no longer wanted us as his people, that we had no future. But some were able to figure out how to run without the ball, to be ready to set up a faith outside of Jerusalem, to make it live and grow and thrive, to create synagogues and opportunities for learning, to appreciate even more how to live around people different than us. They figured out how to make it work. It's why we're here now, because we inherited this paradigm shift. Moments of discontinuity in history have shaped who we are. In the 12th century, with the blossoming of science and reasoning, cognitive traditions were challenged. The young weren't feeling connected to their Judaism. Imagine that. So the Rambam, Maimonides, rewrote the entire compendium of Jewish law, the Talmud. He redacted it into understandable and contemporary Hebrew. He called it the Mishnah Torah, the second Torah. Pretty audacious title. And man, the traditionalists were not happy. But it actually worked. We still study that today. 600 years after that, poverty and illiteracy in Poland, the surrounding areas, was extreme. And a new and great rabbi, the Baal Shem Tov, arrived on the scene. And he was willing to teach everyone and anyone. For him, it wasn't about your previous level of knowledge or status in the community. Rather, your intention is what mattered most. You had to feel your faith and know you belonged. And from that and his mysticism came this new Hasidic faith. Fast forward 100 years. Once again, pervasive anti-Semitism in our world, our people seemingly being pushed out of every country in which they lived. In the late 19th century, a secular Jewish journalist named Theodor Herzl taught a new and refreshing reality, Zionism. We only will be safe and secure, he concluded, when we have a home in the biblical land of Israel, a refuge for any of us needing it at any time. Moments of discontinuity helped us figure out what matters most and how we could survive as a people. With each challenge, enough of us have always believed of the possibility, as improbable as it may have seemed. Our blessing has been the success and the beauty of this American Jewish experiment, alongside the beauty and success of the Israeli experiment. None of it's been perfect, but up until now, they seem to have worked. October 7th, it tore this foundational understanding out from under us. Yet something from within didn't allow us to walk away from the challenges faced. As a result, immediately after, we were powerfully drawn to be together. We saw it happen almost organically here at Shir Shalom, as we tried our best to make sense of what occurred, even though initially we could not. We felt that need, a pull to be with one another. So an email went out to the congregation, and on October 8th, 250 of you showed up here in the sanctuary just to stand as one people. Yes, to offer prayers, to cry, but I believe most importantly, just to let us all know, despite how we felt, we actually were not alone. None of us were alone. The next night, over 3,000 of us showed up with our greater Detroit community with the same intent. Some way we'd get through this. How? We weren't sure. But there was an understanding from deep within, we need to do this together. Quite possibly that became the most important message we've been living with, the value today of community and how much we need each other. In this past year, more have come to simple Friday night Shabbat services than ever before. Granted, the cocktails and lovely onegs help, but still. In a time when we have felt alone, it was good to know we weren't. Likewise, more have come to adult education classes, to programs we've offered. These have given us strength to stand proud in being connected to our Jewish community. But we need more to feel that pride, to appreciate that connection. We need more to let those outside of our Jewish world know what matters to us, to what we stand for, to what we will not stand for. Preach this gospel. Talk to a friend who's not connected, who is unaffiliated, and get them to connect. If Shir Shalom isn't the place for them, that's okay, honestly. Well, sort of honestly. But still, I really like our temple. But most importantly, I want people connected, to know they're a part of community. And I will tell you, with so many being present this year, in a time, personally, when I could not find hope, you all gave it to me. You reminded me our potential is rooted in community, in doing this together. Our shared faith has reignited my belief in our boundless possibilities. It's imbued in our faith. Somehow, some way, we hold on to this knowing what is imaginable. A couple of months into the war, the journalist Barry Weiss was visiting and reporting from Israel. One evening from a theater in Tel Aviv, she conducted an interview with Natan Sharansky, the former chess prodigy and mathematician from the Soviet Union who was arrested in 1977 on made-up charges of treason. His real crime, of course, was being a Jew and wanting to immigrate to Israel. At his formal court hearing, he said, "To this court, I have nothing to say. To my wife and my people, I say, next year in Jerusalem." Took a lot longer than 1 year. He spent 9 in the Siberian Gulag. Upon his release from prison, he emigrated to Israel, became a leader in helping hundreds of thousands get out from under Soviet oppression. In Israel, he was elected to the Knesset and served as a cabinet member for over 10 years. Today, he remains an elder statesman with remarkable perspective, a vision of having literally lived in history. At the conclusion of the interview, Barry Weiss asked him, "How is it you haven't changed with everything you've been through, with everything Israel's been through recently?" And he said, sort of matter of fact, "I'm optimistic because it's in our nature. It's who we are. It's how we feel knowing we're on the right side of history. It may take years longer than we ever anticipate. But," he said, "we will get there." Sharansky's hope came from knowing, even when he was physically alone, he was part of the Jewish people. He had a community with him. Letters from Jews around the globe gave him strength. Learning what people were doing to bring attention to his imprisonment gave him confidence. And from those, he gained his truth. The reality that hope is programmed into our faith, into our soul. But it's still up to us to access it, to choose that perspective. The rabbis of old, 2,000 years ago, understood this as well. For in the Talmud, we learn of 4 questions we each will be asked before being allowed entrance into the Olam Haba, into the world to come after we die. The first question, were you ethical in your business practices? The next, did you study, engage in learning every day? Third, did you enjoy all of the permitted pleasures of this world? I know, Each one of those is a sermon of itself. But it's the last that's most important. For finally, the fourth question we will be asked, did you have hope? Did you believe in your heart of hearts in something being better, a better tomorrow? Like I said in the beginning, this sermon was started and adapted and changed and started again many times. But I've learned one truth in my years as a rabbi. It is okay to say, I don't know. I don't necessarily have every solution to the challenges swirling around us in this world. I don't. But I do know that community, our Jewish community, is something I so strongly believe in. And my hope comes from knowing we will figure out the rest of it together. Amen.